Well, actually, to be fair, he's got about 8-10 minutes because he's joined me in the studio this afternoon.
Really giving me that long?
I've given you that long. George, good afternoon, my friend. Welcome to Express FM.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Listen, let's get straight into this book, The Visiting Hour. It's obviously been going out on our ads and it's been going out now for a while. Tell us about the book for anybody that hasn't had a chance to catch up on it yet.
Oh, if anybody wants a good horror, you know where to go with this one. This is just my first ever supernatural horror, which I've written myself, especially like my other books. And this one, I think if you are a fan of ghosts and prisons, then you'll be one to pick this up.
Okay, so let's go back. Where did the idea for the book come from?
Well, it's stemmed like a lot of things, especially I've always wanted to write a horror since the very beginning, but I thought I'd start out with something a little bit different. That's why my first one was a Western fantasy, so it's sort of like dipping my toe in the water. But this one, I just went full out with this because there's so many like prison stories or whatever. You don't know what's fact and what's real. So I thought mixing the two together with prison culture
great idea.
and the supernatural, all that sort of legend stuff that prisoners always talk about, it just makes for a good fiction. And if we weave it together correctly, I feel like I could scare some people.
Well, I've just looked at the cover and it scared me, my friend. Okay, so this book's how long has it been out now?
It will be out officially tomorrow on Amazon.
Oh, it's out tomorrow. It's released tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why I thought I'd get a little bit of a build-up, just to sort of like bring the tension up a little bit more so people know.
Okay, can you tell us a bit more about the story? I know you're not going to give too much away, but tell us a little bit about the story.
Well, it centres around a character called Jim Ridge, who is a former prisoner at the prison that he was in called Road Park. And he's gone on to different and better things now, but one day he gets a call that the old prison is going to go down. But he knows a lot more than what his friends think, so he has to venture back in there before it's demolished. And there's all sorts of things that he has to put to rest before the prison itself gets put to rest.
Now, if that hasn't sold this book to you by now, that is fantastic. When you actually sit down and you start writing, and I'm thinking, you obviously have a story in mind. And you're sitting there and you're writing away, and suddenly do you think, no, that's too soon. I want to put something before that. Or do you think, do you know what? I'm going to move that because that part of that book would go better maybe earlier in the storyline. How do you put the story together?
Well, I honestly write on the go. I literally write it as fast as I can and then check back because I'm always like in the moment sort of thing, so I always like to write what's on my mind straight away. It's like how I come up with most of my ideas. As soon as it pops into my head, I have to write it down immediately, otherwise I'll either forget, knowing me, or I just will lose interest. And that's always like a plague of issue for me, because I always like go for one idea and then come back to another, and I'm wondering where I'm going to structure myself first.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah. So if anybody would like to get this book, which is released tomorrow, how do they get a copy?
It's all on Amazon, both on Kindle, paperback, and an audiobook, which I'm excited to do because this will be my first audiobook done as well.
It's on audio as well.
Oh yeah, audiobook. It's not done by me, sadly, but it's from a narrator that I got in the States called Anthony Bell, and he was just perfect for this. I think his voice alone, would sell you on every single character.
So it's available via Amazon.
All Amazon, yeah.
Okay. Listen, George, I want to know more about you. Okay, you're a local lad.
Of course.
Okay, and you came up with this vision of being an author. Tell us more about that. Where did that come from?
Well, it always stemmed. It's like what I said to when I was on the show previously. You always have that thought, don't you? Like if you've watched something or you've read something and you think, I could have done so much better than that. And that's just where it like stemmed from. Obviously, I've got like the stuff that I did as a kid when I was in school. I was always like good at English, so I always liked describing things really well. And one of my teachers actually complimented me on like doing that for one lesson in particular, and it was just a descriptive piece, and I thought I dabbled back and forth with doing it. Like I'd always do it like, I just do it on the side or whatever, or just do a few bits here and there, but it sort of stemmed to me as like I could like properly invest in doing this because I've really dedicated especially to the quality of it, and I don't like to waffle on too long because there's always like critiques with other authors where they like, why did they write it like that? They wrote it like the words are too expressive or whatever. And sometimes they just waffle on. I don't want to be that. I just want to be like straight away, you get what you want.
You want to get straight to the point.
Exactly.
This isn't your first book though, is it?
No.
Tell us about your previous books.
Well, like I said, my first one, which was a Western fantasy, was Nation, and that took over the course of 2 years when I was in like a previous job, and it was just tiring just to even write it. And then my second one, which is called UCC, I'll let you to decide what that means. That's just a little hint for when you pick it up. That was like a really short one that I did last year as well. They all came out last year, which was like, it was a horrible year last year, but it was like a perfect time to be productive.
A lot of people said the pandemic, it was awful. It hit every single household around the world, one way or another. But one thing that it did do was give people the chance in the music industry to get down and write new material, and people like yourself to express what you want to do and get down and write some novels. So the pandemic, although it was absolutely awful, it has had one or two positives. In your case, it's meant you can fulfill your dreams and start writing.
I hope so anyway. I hope so. If anyone really wants to pick it up, I'd be most grateful, if anything.
How do you get your ideas?
Well, I'm a bit mad myself, but I think that lends it to the quality of what I write as well. But it's like I said, anything comes to my head. You don't have to have any sort of filter. That's why I like doing it, because you can just write whatever. Unless...
So you could be walking down the road and something could happen, and suddenly you think, my goodness, we could turn that into...
Oh yeah.
It's as easy as that.
Anything, bend anything. Like, you've got to like really tap into that sort of like craziness of writing, because you could just say like, some people will like look at a bus and think, oh, that's a bus. But in your head, you could just like change it into like any sort of like transportation, or it leads to some unknown portal of an unknown land, anything. I mean, you just got to think, yeah, it's mad, but I can work with it.
But sometimes, and I mean this out of complete and total respect, you have to have a mad sense of humour, a mad outlook, because that's what will give you the storylines. And I mean that with complete and total respect.
Yeah,
you have to think outside the box to be able to write horror.
Yeah, you have to be, I wouldn't say, well, you have to have like a mad sense of humour to even begin with. I think my friends in particular would know what sort of stuff we would say in particular, and think, yeah, there's a bit of inspiration there, I would say.
Now, you obviously are on social media. You have your own website. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, my own website. It's thornwood.online. That's just literally an anagram for me. And I'll have all my others like Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube as well. I do quite a lot of stuff on YouTube, not just writing, but I am a bit of a movie buff, so I like to make my own sort of thing as well on there.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I like I said, I don't focus more on one thing. I focus on lots of other things. It's kind of like the books. I don't stick with one genre. I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I like to, go everywhere with this, like different genres, different types, and just bring it all together, just so you can say you've done lots of stuff. That's what I want to do.
I think that it's always great to sow many seeds and see which starts to grow, because you may find the horror starts to take off, and suddenly you think, okay,
people are going to want more.
Yeah, somebody might want a love story with a twist, or you think, oh, a bit of a romance, and suddenly
I'll try.
but from that point of view, you could think, you know what, I could follow that up. You could put a romance into a thriller, and suddenly you found a genre which maybe you weren't necessarily looking for, but suddenly you've got people that are saying, where's the next book? I mean, you look at the likes of Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's always a good explanation.
So I think it was 7 in the end, wasn't it?
7 books, 8 movies. That's how people were invested with it.
And suddenly, was that the outset? Was that what was there at the beginning? Did you think, I'm going to do 7 books?
Yeah, it's kind of like Nation. I know I'm going to follow up that book. My dad is always like wanting me to follow that book up, because it was like the very first one, and I left it on a note that would be setting up a sequel entirely. And I've actually got 4 more for that story in particular. I'm not going to say what happens, but it's out there. It will be done. I guarantee it.
Fantastic. What is your ambition? Sitting here now, you seem full of enthusiasm. You're buzzing. I can see you here in the studio, and you just want to write.
Right.
But what is your ambition? What is your long-term goal?
Anything to get as further as I can into the novel industry. I'd love to write so much stuff. not just for like books, but also for film as well. Because I think like some of these ideas, I think I like to picture like how a movie outcome of that book would take place.
Right.
Because like with some of my books, I do think of it like as a movie first. Like you always picture the scene, and I think, you know, I could even direct that sort of thing. And it's like a couple of things that I do with the YouTube as well. I did like a short film with my buddy who's with me right now, stuntman in training here, and we just did this one thing together, and it did very well. It very, very well. And I think, you know, both of those things don't seem out of the ordinary. I think it can be achieved, both writing and directing.
How hard is it to get a book published?
Well, with how I've done it, very easy. I do it through Amazon's self-publishing service, KDP, and it's honestly quite liberating to do all that stuff yourself. Like you edit it, you look through it, you do the cover art, you can get somebody else to do it if you want, like I did for this one in particular. And you just have creative fun, you know, you just have the leash, you know what you're doing with it, and you can set it for any sort of time. Yeah, traditional publishing is good, but for me, I like to get things done. Like when they email me back a few times saying like, oh, we'll check you out in like maybe 6 or 8 months. I'm thinking, you really going to make me wait that long? I want this done now. You know, I'm like on the mark. I want to go.
We were talking off air, and when they say 6 to 8 months, you want to give them 6 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You want an answer.
Anything shorter, like, can you just give me seconds at least?
Looking ahead, can you give us any little inklings of what you're working on at the moment?
Oh.
Because don't even sit there and go, no, I'm not working on anything, because I won't believe you, right, to start with.
No, I wouldn't even believe me.
Because I can only imagine you are continually working. So come on, what do you work? Can you give us a little bit of an insight into what you're doing at the moment?
Oh, I would definitely have to say, if you love thrillers and if you like conspiracies, one book in particular that I've jotted down already, thinking of working on, it's in the works. It is in the works. As well as stuff on YouTube, I've got stuff on there as well. A follow-up to that film I mentioned. And also other ideas, stuff that will also be relating to my books, because like I said with the movie stuff, yeah, everybody likes readable material and visual material. So who's to say I won't write something or make something for the YouTube that's not related to a new book in any way?
Fantastic. So once again, tell everybody about your YouTube. Where do they find you on YouTube?
I'm at YouTube at Thornwood, just Thornwood, and that will also be the name for like my Instagram, my Facebook, and of course my website as well.
Give them the website details.
Yep, it will be www.thornwood.online. That's where you can reach me at any point.
And so if you would like to get in touch and find out more about George, please get in touch with him. The Visiting Hour, it gets released tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I bet you can't wait, can you?
I'm going to have a lie down. Like I said to you previously, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a lie down after this, because this is like, on here it's nerve-wracking enough, but like I said, especially with the first book last year, I'm just getting my foot in the door.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't read it, but I've just had a quick flick through, which you probably saw me doing. I'm thinking, I want to know more. The crowd all lifted their heads and began to recite the famous chorus of. But what did they recite the famous chorus of? The only way you're going to find out,
good choice,
is by getting the book. Okay, George, listen, thank you so much for coming in today. Once again, where do they get the book from?
They get it straight from Amazon. It'll be on Kindle, paperback, and audiobook.
Fantastic. George, once again, thank you for joining me today. I know you've come in, you've taken time out of a busy schedule. Have a safe journey back, and what's more, have a fantastic first day with the book tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.